Good morning. It's good to be with you on this Friday morning. Hope you're doing well as we begin this day together in our time in Esther's book. It's Friday, as I mentioned. This will be our last reflection for a week. I'm going to be out of town, leaving Sunday after church to fly up to Ohio from doctoral studies at United. So, no rooted next week. Internet's not always great up there, and I don't take all of my stuff with me. So, we won't meet next week, but then we won't have our time together online in the mornings next week. But then we will pick up the following week. So it'll be, I guess, golly, the 3rd of February. I'll have to, my calendar's not up yet for February on my wall, so I don't really know exactly what the date it is, but it'll be a week from next Monday. So no rooted next week, and then we'll be back and we'll finish out Esther when we resume. So today we're going to be in Esther chapter 7. And today is when everything kind of comes home to roost today. Today is the chef's kiss, if you will, of our guy Haman. So let's read what happens. Just a reminder, we were yesterday. And all the worm had begun to turn because Haman had to parade Mordecai through town and say, "This is the guy the king loves." And so now Haman knows it's probably gonna end badly for him. So let's pick up with chapter 7. We'll read the entire chapter. So the king and Haman went to Queen Esther's banquet. As they were drinking wine on the second day, the king asked, "Queen Esther, what is your petition? It will be given to you. What is your request? Even up to half the kingdom will be granted." Then Queen Esther answered, "If I have found favor with you, your majesty, and if it pleases you, grant me my life. That is my petition. And spare my people, for this is my request. For I and my people have been sold to be destroyed, killed, and annihilated. If we had merely been sold as male and female slaves, I would have kept quiet, because no distress would justify disturbing the king." King Xerxes asked Queen Esther, "Who is he? Who is the man who has dared to do such a thing?" Queen Esther said, "An adversary and an enemy. This is vile Haman." So Haman was terrified before the king and queen. The king got up in a rage, left his wine, and went into the palace garden. But Haman, realizing the king had already decided his fate, stayed behind to beg Queen Esther for his life. Just as the king returned to the palace garden to the banquet hall, Haman was falling on the couch where Queen Esther was reclining. The king exclaimed, "Will he even molest the queen while she is with me in the house?" As soon as the word left the king's face, the king's mouth, they covered Haman's face. Then Abonai, one of the eunuchs attending to the king, said, "A pole reaching the height of 50 cubits stands by Haman's house. He had set it up for Mordecai, who spoke up to help the king. The king said, 'Impale him on it.' So they impaled Haman on the pole he had set up for Mordecai. Then the king's fury subsided." So let's be clear. Even though the king was the instrument through which the Jews were now spared, and Haman is now punished. Let's also remember that the king was kind of the one that well, Haman started the whole thing off, but the king's, you know, irrational anger was a big part of all of this. So it ends, then the king's fury was subsided. So we see the king really, he he didn't, shall we say, he did not bathe himself in glory in this. But now we see that Haman goes to the banquet knowing what is probably going to happen. And Esther clothes herself and her people. This is my petition. Spare my people. Uh, Spare my people. This is my request. For I and my people have been sold to be destroyed, killed, and annihilated. If we'd merely been sold as male and female slaves, I would have kept quiet. For no distress would justify the king. So basically, she now goes to the king and says, "We have been, by the way, sold at the king's orders, what made it happen." Of course, Haman was the one that accomplished this. But she says, "Spare my life." So the queen, she not only saves the Jewish people here, but she reveals that she herself is Jewish. And so she is clothing herself in the identity and in the struggles of her people here. And she's saying, save us. My request that you save my life, and that in saving my life, you save the life of my people. And I do think Esther's courage is to be greatly admired because there's a lot of ways she could have went around it. She could have just said, save the people. But she said, no, these people are me. These are my people. This is who I am. I am Jewish. This is my community. This is me. And so spare them, spare me. And the king hears. And of course, Haman, of course, is executed on the very scaffold, the very pole that he had made himself. There's it's so ironic that he had this constructed to kill Mordecai on, and now it becomes the very thing that he is killed on. So we see in this how Esther has great courage. Um, she receives Mordecai's word. She fasts, she prays, she has a plan, and she reveals to the king who she is, and she reveals to the king the need to save her people. One of my favorite quotes is by the old British TV show, Doctor Who. Courage is not being afraid. Courage is being afraid and doing the right thing anyway. Esther did the right thing. She did the right thing. All we can do is do the right thing today. I think sometimes about life, how in my life, there's many times I've not made the right decision, been afraid, been unsure, and I blinked. There's been many times in my life when faced with a difficult choice, I blinked. And I'm not proud of those moments, and I'm ashamed of them. I wish I wouldn't have. We have no control over the mistakes we've made in the past. All we have control over is how do we live out our faith today. Steve Castile, some of you in Mississippi, St. Matthew's people, obviously. People across our conference know Steve. Steve is a retired United Methodist pastor, been a dear friend and mentor of mine for many years. And Steve told me one time when I was beating myself up for a time when I made a mistake in leadership. He said, don't be mad at the mistake you made then because you were not then who you are now. You did not have the knowledge or the experience in that moment that you have now. And so you cannot beat yourself up for the mistake you made then because you were not then who you are now. Friends, as you put yourself in the place of Queen Esther, which is one of the ways to read scripture is to put ourselves in these places. If you put yourself in the place of Queen Esther, there may have been times in your past when you didn't make the right decision, when you were afraid, when you didn't want to have the courage, when you didn't have the courage, when you cowered it out, when you blinked, when you blinked. We've all had times when we blinked, friends. I have, you have, we all have. Don't beat yourself up for the times when you blinked in the past, but learn from that. And when you are faced with a difficult decision or a challenge now, in this moment, make the choice based off what you've learned, who you are, how you've grown, what your integrity is. Make the choice now. Live with courage now in a way that you may not have in the past. Courage is not bravery and courage. Courage is not being afraid. Courage is being afraid and doing the right thing anyway. So today, may we be like Queen Esther. When our moment comes, when we face difficult choices, let's choose courage. Let's choose bravery. Lewis says courage is the virtue by which all other virtues are tested. So let's let's be brave and trust in God to have our backs in times of fear. So today we'll that'll wrap up this chapter of Esther. We will be off next week and we'll pick up in a week with chapter 8. Thanks for being with us. Have a great day.